Thank you and good evening. Welcome to the planning board meeting of Tuesday, April 16th, 2024. We now have remote access to the meeting. People have signed up, and obviously we're on local TV. With that, I'll open the meeting and entertain a motion for the meeting minutes of April 2nd, which was our last meeting. It's in our packet.
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes as written.
Motion by Joe to accept the meeting minutes as written. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Chris. Any further discussion? Hearing not, all those in favor will signify by saying aye of accepting the meeting minutes.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. It's 4 with 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Second thing on the order is our annual reorganization. Obviously, we just went through elections. I'd like to welcome Martha onto the board as a new member. With that, first position is for chairman. Traditionally, just for those members, we've normally had the member with the shortest remaining term as our chairman, although obviously that's available to anybody, but that would be Babe, who will be up for re-election next year. Do I hear a motion for chairman for next year?
May I move to nominate Dave Manini, Marble Manini as chairman?
Motion to have Babe as our next chairman. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Joe. Any further discussion? Hearing not, all those in favor of having Babe as the chairman for the coming year will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous at 5. Vice chair, that was Babe, obviously. The member with the least amount of seniority or the shortest term at that point would be Martha, who is filling in Ted's remaining term. But a motion for anybody for vice chair.
I'll nominate Chris.
Motion,
I was about to ask you if you wanted to.
motion for Chris to serve as vice chair. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing not, all those in favor of having Chris serve as our vice chair for the next year will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous at 5. Motion for our clerk. We've been using Larry for the clerk for the past few years since Karen has left. Is there a motion for the clerk for the coming year?
I move that Larry Duncan be appointed as clerk.
Motion for Larry to be appointed as clerk. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Joe. Any further discussion? Hearing not, all those in favor of having Larry as our clerk will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous at 5. The MAPC swap representative, I've been doing that one. Try to attend some of the, or at least some of the Zoom meetings for that. If anybody else is interested, certainly let me know, but otherwise I will continue on if that's.
I make a motion, we have Joe Cal as the MAPC swap rep.
Motion by Babe to have myself continue on as the MAPC swap representative. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Chris. Any further discussion? Hearing not, all those in favor of having myself as the MAPC swap representative will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous at 5. Fair Housing Committee representative, last year that was Joe. I'm not sure if they did have any meetings or not, Joe, but that's one of the ones that we do need to appoint somebody, so if I hear a motion for our Fair Housing Committee representative?
If Joe wants to stay on,
Sure.
then I nominate Joe,
Morais.
Marais, to the, for heaven's
Fair
sake.
Housing.
Fair Housing, thank you.
Yeah, motion by Joe to continue on as our Fair Housing Committee representative. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Babe. Any further discussion? Hearing not, all those in favor of having Joe as our Fair Housing Committee representative will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous at 5. Open Space Advisory Committee liaison, that was Ted's. Obviously, that position has been open since his passing. Martha did say that she would be interested in serving on that committee. With that, I'll open up.
Make a motion, we nominate Martha to be on the Open Space Advisory Committee liaison.
Motion by Babe to have Martha serve as the Open Space Advisory Committee liaison. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Joe. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of having Martha as the Open Space Advisory Committee liaison will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous at 5. Public Arts Policy Task Force liaison, that has been Babe for the past few years. I don't know if you've had any meetings or not, Babe, but that's,
I did talk to him a couple of times.
obviously as chairman, if you'd like to continue on, that's, so I'll open it up for nominations for the Public Arts Task Force liaison.
I nominate Dave Minini as the Public Arts Task Force liaison.
Motion by Martha to have Babe serve as the Public Art Policy Task Force liaison. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Chris. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of having Babe serve as the Public Art Policy Task Force liaison will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous at 5. Got to do a few authorizations. We need to do a vote to authorize the clerk and/or the town planner to sign correspondence on behalf of the chairman and to sign planning board meeting postings with the town clerk. And we will, do we want to take those separately,
Yeah, so moved.
Larry?
No, you can do
You
one.
can do all of them? All right. We also need to authorize the town planner to sign planning board payroll, to call the planning board meetings and set public hearings, to set the planning board agenda. Martha, you said you...
So moved.
Motion to have, motion by Martha to authorize the clerk and/or the town planner to sign correspondence on behalf of the chairman, to sign planning board meeting postings with the town clerk, and to authorize the town planner to sign planning board payroll, to call planning board meetings and set public hearings, and also to set planning board agendas. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Chris. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous at 5. Thanks, Babe, it's all yours.
Thank you.
There is just for members, because I think this might only be in my packet, but the terms, it's in everybody's, okay, so if everybody's aware, Babe, Martha, Joe, Chris, and then myself, in terms of the order of the terms coming up.
Okay, first thing we have is the public hearing for zoning bylaw for relating to brew pubs uses. Larry, you have that.
Yeah, I can read the notice for all of them, actually. Milford Planning Board notice of public hearing on Tuesday, April 16th, 2024, in room 3 of Milford Town Hall, 52 Main Street. The Milford Planning Board will, at times designated, conduct public hearings regarding the following items. The full application and maps of the items are available for public inspection at the Office of Planning and Engineering, Town Hall, 52 Main Street, at normal business hours. The legal notice was published in the Daily News on April 4th and April 9th.
Okay. Any,
So public hearing number 1.
oh, you gonna do all of them right in a row?
Well, you
Yeah, go ahead.
consider them separately, but do them
Yeah.
in series, yeah. Application of the planning board to amend section 2.1 and section 4.1 of the zoning bylaw relating to brew pub uses. As you'll see in your packet, this particular article is Article 8 in the warrant. It amends section 2.3 of the use regulation schedule to make an adjustment to manufacturing and processing uses under the industrial use category for principal uses by changing the special permit granting authority in the commercial C zoning district from the zoning board to the planning board. It also adds in section 2.3 the use regulation schedules a reference to brew pubs as accessory uses. And the chart then would show brew pubs by special permit in the CA, CB, and CC commercial zones, and then by permitted use in the 3 industrial zones. And of course, the site plan requirements are still in place. In addition to that, we would amend section 4.1 definitions with a new definition for brew pub, which would read as follows: a small artisanal brewery, distillery, or winery conducted as an accessory use to a restaurant that prepares handcrafted beverages intended for direct consumption on the premises by patrons of the restaurant. Such accessory uses may occupy up to 30% of the gross floor area of the restaurant. The background and narrative reads as follows. It seeks to amend the bylaw to allow brew pub uses by the planning board special permit in the 3 commercial zones. It's intended to promote redevelopment in these districts generally, and especially focused on the revitalization of downtown areas. As proposed, a brew pub would be conducted as an accessory use to a restaurant, with the beverages being brewed intended for the direct consumption on the premises by the restaurant patrons. The brew pub aspect would be limited to occupied up to 30%, as we just read in the article.
Okay,
Yep.
any comments from the board?
No, I mean, I think we've discussed this one. I think as a first cut through, I think we're aware that this is somewhat a dynamic area, depending on how things are and whether they're exactly the right numbers or not, or tough for us to say, but at least it's our first try to permit these types of things in town. I think we talked about the possibility that some of these things may want to have some sort of selling out of the thing in the future or things like that, but it was tough to figure out exactly where we go, and we thought this would at least get us down the path of starting, and I think it does that. So in terms of that, I'm in favor of the amendment to the zoning bylaws, and think it may at least get people, if nothing else, in to talk to us about, gee, can I do this, can we change this or not? So I think it gives them now that opportunity, so I'd be in favor.
Yes.
I met with Larry this afternoon to get a better understanding of some of these proposals, and actually that was exactly where my thought process went, is that it would not be unusual for a brew pub to want to sell retail. I believe the containers are referred to as growlers that you would get from a brew pub. And as this is currently written, I believe it would prohibit the sale of growlers or other, not to be consumed on premises. However, I believe that that horse has kind of left the barn, and that if at this point, somebody correct me if I'm mistaken, but I believe at this point if someone felt passionately about that, the place to voice that would be on town meeting floor, I believe, at this stage. So
Yes.
I'm just making that statement, but not upsetting the apple cart in any way right now.
Okay, anyone else? This being a public hearing, anybody in the audience have any input on this article, on this hearing?
Sure, I'll speak. Can I sit up here where these guys are? Are you guys here for item 7? I recommend 6. I recommend clearing the way so that anyone who wants to speak
Well,
has
you're not
access
having
to
the
the
meeting,
microphone.
just sit down and ask a question.
I'm just saying, any resident who wants to speak has the same right to access a microphone as these guys in suits.
It's right there.
Excellent. I'm really grateful that you said what you said about off-sale premises, and I hope
Could you tell our name and?
J.D. Wheelock from Cuniff Ave in Milford, and this is a great and overdue addition to the bylaws. And yes, merchants probably should be able to can and glass bottle growler what they're selling there. And I hope that the planning board themselves will weigh in on this addition, as opposed to waiting for a random town meeting member or interested party to speak up during town meeting. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Make a motion, we send a favorable recommendation to town meeting.
And second?
Been moved and seconded, we send a favorable recommendation to the town meeting. Any further discussion? If not, hearing that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that's closing the public hearing too, yes. And opposed, unanimous of 5.
Public hearing number 2, application of the planning board to amend section 3.4 and section 4.1 of the zoning bylaw relating to electronic vehicle charging stations. As you can see in the packet, Mr. Chairman, the article should be Article 24 in the warrant. There are several sections that the board had worked out over the past few months in terms of allowing for these provisions. If we take them a little out of order, it might make a little bit more sense since there are several pieces to this. There are some new definitions. An electronic vehicle is defined as a vehicle that uses an electric motor and runs fully or partially on electricity from a rechargeable battery. And electric vehicle charging stations are the electric power supply device that supplies electricity to recharge the electric vehicles. Both of those definitions would be added by amending section 4.1 definitions of the zoning bylaw. And then the primary text of the amendment amends section 3.4 parking requirements in the bylaw that would relate to the electronic charging vehicles and primarily apply to any parking lot that has 20 or more parking spaces. That electronic charging stations could potentially be allowed as long as they don't exceed 10% of the total number of parking spaces. That the uses are still in compliance with the off-street parking spaces, and that there would be a potential for shared parking special permit requirements in those areas, that the 3 or 4 lots that already have a shared parking requirement. This was, as I said, developed over the past several months. Hopefully will provide clearer provisions to regulate the addition of the charging stations. In the past, there weren't any clear provisions to do it at all, and this would limit it and regulate it in an appropriate manner as long as the parking lots have at least 20 spaces.
Any comments from the board?
Again, probably the same type of thing. Again, this is a dynamic area where not sure how this technology is going to actually come out, what it's going to finally end with, but at least it gives us some level to start. Depending on how the technology changes as it moves forward, we can adjust it, but it at least gives us something in the bylaw to address the usage.
No comments.
Again, this is good. It sets up for the developers to understand what they can do with the putting in charging stations, and also in the future, when the number of cars come and it's going to be a mandatory thing, we have something to really go by and put it out. So I think this is a good start at all. Yes.
Just sort of looking future, maybe at some point the board, we should consider a requirement for new parking lots over X number of spaces. I have no idea what the formula would be, but over X number of spaces, having X percentage of the spaces be charging stations as a requirement for new lots.
Yeah, that's what, again, this is what we did for right now, to give the people an idea what, one of the things I do when somebody comes for a site plan review, or amended site plan review, I tell them, if you're gonna dig up the parking spot, at least put the conduit in for the charging stations. And this will give them an idea what they're gonna do and how much conduit and how many stations they could possibly set up.
Beautiful. Yeah,
So-
so this is a great first step.
And if it becomes necessary, and it's gonna be, it will be a mandatory thing in the future, we get something, just go change it to make it mandatory instead of voluntary, and
Very forward thinking.
it'll be all set. This also being a public hearing, any of the board members, anything else? This public hearing, has anybody got any input on this article? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to close the public hearing and send a favorable recommendation to town meeting.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, we close the public hearing and send a favorable recommendation to the town meeting. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous of 5.
Moving right along, public hearing number 3. This is the application of the planning board to amend section 2.3 of the zoning bylaw relating to contractors' yards. This should be Article 19 in the warrant. It reads to see if the town will vote to amend Article 2.3 use regulations of the zoning bylaw relating to contractors' yards as follows. Amends the use regulation schedule to allow for contractors' yards by special permit from the zoning board in the commercial C zoning district. The proposed amendment will allow for contractors' yards by ZBA special permit within the CC commercial zoning district. There are currently a number of similar manufacturing and auto-related uses already allowed by special permit in the commercial C district. There's been multiple inquiries as to various vacant sites in the commercial C zone for contractors' yards. So I'm assuming that if this passes, you'll see a number of applications versus the violations going to ZBA for special permit.
Any comments from the board? Yes,
I have a question. I'm sorry to be butting in.
Not-
Not butting in, but
that's what you're here for.
can somebody remind me, and my apologies, like whereabouts the CC district is, the primary, oh, I'm sorry, that's a map.
The plazas.
There?
There you go, I need to,
It's primarily the plazas.
there's another one I need to update.
I'm sorry.
That's not, that one's not the latest, but
Well, the
it's good
commercial-
enough.
It's
Good for your CC.
It's in the plaza areas.
Oh, yeah, down by, the split between 109 and 16.
That's one of them. The other one's
Oh, I s-
140
Yeah, I was
south.
gonna say one.
And there's another stretch running up 140.
Like down by True Value or Ace, whatever it's
Yep.
called? Okay. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt
No.
with that little walk of mine.
Nothing on this one, I mean, this one was, I think we felt this one was sort of a cleanup article, just, there's been a number, there's a number of symbol uses, contractor yards in those zones already that are allowed, and we just felt that allowing contractor yards as well made sense. Again, part of the reason being that people have come and asked if they could put contractor yards in those areas, or what we define as contractor yards, and it just seemed to make sense.
Anyone else? This, as far as I'm concerned, this would take the place of a 3-page definition to try to make it, so this being a public hearing, anyone in the audience have any input? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll motion to send a favorable recommendation and close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded to close the public hearing, send a favorable recommendation. Any further discussion?
Who's second?
Hearing none.
Marias?
All those in favor?
Yeah, the Joe.
Oh,
Josie.
Opposed? Unanimous of 5.
I'm going to abstain. I don't feel like I understand this or know this one
Okay.
well enough, so I'd like to abstain, please.
Okay, 4 in favor, 1 abstention.
Public hearing number 4, the application of the select board to amend section 2.3 and section 3.20 of the zoning bylaw relating to residential sports court uses. As you recall, this is a relatively new section of the bylaw, and it was discovered that some issues needed to be adjusted. So that's what this article is about. This is Article 14 in the warrant. reads to see the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw related to sports courts as noted hereinafter. The First Amendment section is to the use schedule in section 2.3. It would now make residential sports course ZBA special permits in all the residential zoning districts. So that amendment would affect the RC and the RD zoning districts, which had previously been allowed as of right. They would be special permits with this amendment. And then the primary thrust of the amendment was to section 3.20, dealing with replacing that current section 3.20.7 in its entirety, which deals with lighting, and add 4 new subsections, reading as follows. Lighting fixtures must be a minimum of 20 feet from the rear or side property lines. Such lighting shall be of a type of fixtures that shall be located and directed so as not to illuminate adjacent properties. The mounting height of the fixtures shall not exceed 15 feet or the height of the principal building, whichever is less. And finally, no lighting shall be established or utilized until such lighting has been inspected and certified by the Office of Building Commissioner as in compliance with these provisions and applicable wiring and electrical codes. This was sponsored by the Select Board. Primarily, the timing wasn't such that we could have discussed it here in front of this board, or it may actually have been sponsored by you guys, but nonetheless, the Select Board had put it on the warrant, and that's how it's been noticed. The article, as I mentioned to begin with, corrects the language of the current bylaw, which is relatively recent. The amendment will also provide for consistency among all the residential zones, as I noted, by adding the special permit requirement for the RC and the RD districts. Mr. Chairman?
Any comments from the board?
I have one on the first section, Larry, 320.7A, lighting fittings. Is there a definition of what lighting fittings are?
I didn't come up with this, I just helped them put it in the.
Well, I'm just wondering, because I couldn't define that. I'm not sure what, my idea of what lighting fittings are wouldn't apply to what I think they're trying to regulate. So I'm just afraid of the wording in terms of, is it lighting and associated appurtenances, which I'm not really sure. I'm not sure what they're trying to have 25 feet from the rear or side lot lines. If that's the light pole, the light. I don't know that underground wiring, I'd really care if it's 5 feet from the property line.
I think it's the fixtures.
Yeah,
I would have said
fixtures.
fixture, not fittings, but
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Do we know what the words are that we're replacing? Because it doesn't have the
Not
existing
replacing.
language.
Not replace it because there's nothing in there yet.
There's
just
nothing
add-
in there on lighting.
Oh,
Yeah.
there isn't, it says by
Yes,
deleting.
there is, it's
Yeah.
self-contradictory.
Oh.
Deleting
The first statement says
3.20.7.
that it's
Yep.
prohibited, and the next statement right after it gives a whole list of things regulating lighting. So that's why you would just delete section 327.7 altogether and replace it with this language. Because right now, it's gonna be the last page I come to. Sure enough. So right now, 320.7 says residential sports courts lighting shall be prohibited. And then sub A, lighting fixtures must be a minimum of 25 feet. So I think
I think
it's
they
a
want
typo.
fixtures. Yeah.
I think the fittings word is a typo. So we'll address that with town council going forward, but at least this is what it had said previously.
Okay.
First statement is lighting is prohibited, and then sub A, fixtures shall be 25 feet, lighting shall further be a type and located position of blah, blah, blah. And then C, the mounting height is 15 feet. So it's similar language, it's one more statement in there, but it's with the amendment, say for the word fitting versus fixture, at least it's not as self-contradictory.
Could, if you're gonna have a change, could you put lighting fixtures and
Well, I think we can correct the fittings by virtue of it being a typo.
Yeah.
But
The
to,
Scribner's there.
yeah, to do more than that is likely,
Yeah, you're outside the four corners of the,
yeah, you'd have to do it at a town meeting.
Yeah, we can do it on town meeting too.
Not that, I mean,
Yeah, I know.
But
Yeah.
is there consensus that we could change fittings to fixtures as a corrective? Would somebody said
he's
Scribner's
gonna,
error?
yeah, Larry's gonna check with town council, but
yeah, the minutes will reflect that you noted it in the meeting, and I'll talk to him.
if you think there's something else that you wanna bring up, then.
Just something to bring in the poll. Fixtures and related,
Yeah, I was thinking about it in terms of related appurtenances. The only problem with that is how far do you take appurtenances?
Right.
Because some people would say the conduit and
Yeah.
wiring are
No,
appurtenances,
that's-
and we don't want that.
just
I
trying
mean,
to,
it's,
What's your concern with the pole itself?
well, because it doesn't say it in there.
No, I know, but if the pole is closer than 25 feet, what is your concern
No, I got no,
with having it closer? So then,
no, I got, the 25 feet is fine with me. I'm just wanting to make sure.
I think the actual intent isn't the lighting fixture, to be totally honest, when they did this. I believe it's the light pole bases shall be,
Yes.
is what it should actually be, if you really want to get down to it, because, we start getting into how long arms are and stuff, things like that, but I think the intent was that, the bases have to be at that location.
Thing is, once you start putting up a pole that's 15, 18 feet, now you gotta go down 6 feet with a base to hold the pole.
Well, I think you're not gonna put up a pole if you don't intend to put a light on it if you've got a sports car.
Yeah, I understand.
So-
I think, I mean, from,
I think we're overthinking it.
yes.
Okay.
This is,
I would-
clearly it's a Scribner's error.
I would say that the idea is to keep the light itself.
Exactly.
I don't think many people care where the light pole is. I
No,
think,
you're not gonna put up a pole for nothing.
right,
No, no, no.
they only care where the light is.
Where the bulbs
They
are.
wanna get the bulbs, so they want the bulb far enough away from the lot line, and then they want it facing away from the lot
Yeah.
line,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, yes.
And to support Elizabeth's remarks, the item C, I believe, is referring to the actual light bulbs.
Mhm.
The use of the phrase light fixture, my interpretation of 15 feet, shall not exceed 15 feet or the height of the principal building. And again, I think they're talking about from where the light is emanating, what I'm simply referring to as the bulbs. So I agree with everyone's who remarked that letter A is supposed to say lighting fixtures. Because again, I think they're talking about from where the light emits.
Okay, any other comments from the board? Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I read right over the fittings to fixtures, but certainly being 25 feet from the lot lines is a good idea. I think that cleaning this up in general certainly is going to be just good business. My question is on C, when we do say the 15 feet, should we also, or should we go to the select board, and should the language have anything that the light fixtures need to be focused down? Are we concerned that, if you have a light fixture and it's not focused down, that it's gonna project over and it could project in the neighboring yards?
Well, it says.
So do we clean up that?
The end of B cleans that up.
Does it clean it up enough?
It's
Yeah.
not to eliminate adjacent,
Yeah.
not to
Adjacent
illuminate
properties.
adjacent properties.
Okay. That would be my only concern there. And then, yeah, if this is the select boards, are we still giving it a favorable or unfavorable?
Yes, we have to,
Okay.
any
That was
zoning,
just
we have to give a recommendation.
Thoughts on the cleanup there, so. And again, it's good that, individuals still have to get the special permit through the ZBA, so certainly they'll be able to keep tight reins on things.
Was there discussion, or is it part of it that they have to go through site plan review? Or did
There's a
I-
footnote, residential sports club, footnote number 1.
Okay, so,
That's the magic footnote.
I love that. I thought, so that would kind of cover the lighting too,
Okay.
because as part of site plan review, we can make sure that it's not illuminating.
Yeah, that's in the bylaw already.
Yeah, it's already in the bylaw.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, very good.
Okay, being a public hearing, any, from the public, any input? Yes, Mr. Wheelock.
I'll make this real brief. Can the board clarify if this amendment affects existing residential sports courts or just future built sports courts?
Just future.
So
Only the legal ones,
all existing ones are grandfathered in?
only if they're legal.
Okay.
Anyone else? What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to close the public hearing and send a favorable recommendation to town meeting, assuming the change from lighting fittings to lighting fixtures is changed or is actually the way it does read.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and we close the public hearing and send a favorable recommendation. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous of 5.
Moving right along, public hearing number 5. Application of the select board to amend section 2.1 and section 4.1 of the zoning bylaw relating to residential animals and beekeeping uses. As you see in your packet, this amendment is Article 28 in the warrant. It amends section 2.3 of the use regulation schedule to add residential animals to amend the residential animals areas of availability to prohibit them in the RA zone, because they're already special permit by ZBA in the other residential zones. They're also currently permitted in the CB, CC, IA, and IB zones for some reason. So this amendment would prohibit them there as accessory uses to residential principal uses, since there are very few residential uses in those zones anymore. It also amends section 4.1 definitions, and this is the primary change. It deletes the last sentence of the definition of residential animals in its entirety and adopts in lieu thereof the following words. Residential animals shall also include beekeeping, but shall not include the keeping of 3 or fewer dogs, 3 or fewer cats, or any household pet which is normally kept within a dwelling unit. Again, as I show in the narrative, we've had numerous inquiries lately from residences hoping to pursue beekeeping, but given the way our bylaw is constructed, it's not allowed. Given the fact that we needed to look at whether to continue to have residential animals in the RA zoning district was enough to say that it was probably a good idea to amend this section anyway and include the beekeeping as a special permit use. The RB, RC, and RD districts have larger lot sizes and lower densities than the tied-in areas around downtown that are in the RA zone.
Any comments from the board?
I have a question. So if you had a non-conforming residence in, say, the CB district, not that anybody's going to be out, looking for this, but can you have pets?
Yeah, I think you can have 3 or fewer.
Even if,
Yes, because
This
that's
is
not
prohibiting
considered, that's not,
pets.
It's not considered.
it's not considered a pet until you get above 3, that, when you
so
have
if you
to.
want 4
Yes,
So
pets.
if you have a cat or a dog in a residential 1, then that's fine. It
Yeah.
doesn't, you don't need to do anything, it's.
And it's kind of a silly question.
No.
I'm okay.
So,
Anyone else? The only thing I see here is it should be their hives, commercially hives, not, I don't want somebody who has a flock of bees in a tree, and then all of a sudden they're calling the building inspector for a zoning violation. That's the only thing I see wrong with this. Other than that, I have no problem with it whatsoever. And there's no way to put it in right now, right, Larry?
Not very easily. I think beekeeping.
Beekeeping, I think, yeah, I think
It's
that's
pretty much.
having a hive there that isn't being used, I don't think is considered.
Well, no,
would
if
be
it's being
considered
used, I mean, I brought back to when Gary Air Hanlon had their back window was all covered with, there was a beehive on the entire window. That just natural, there was a natural thing of there.
But that's not beekeeping.
Well,
That's a nuisance beehive
Well-
that they didn't want.
that's, again, it's in the eye. That was my only question on that. Any other comments from the board? Hearing none, this is a public hearing also. Any comments from the public? Yes, Mr. Wheelock?
Larry might be a good guy to answer this question. Will this evolve as elaborate site plan reviews as the chicken issue, where you needed actual engineered drawings for where your plan for your chicken coop was? Or is this gonna be as simple as, I want to put the chickens in this corner of the property?
No, it will require a site plan.
Yeah, still
Yeah.
special permit from the
That's-
zoning board of appeals.
That's a really high hurdle. I'm
If you
really
wanna
sorry.
do it, you pay the price, Mr. Wheelock. That was just gonna, because if you don't do that, I can tell you right now what happens. Somebody comes in and says, I'm gonna put it in the middle of my lot. It's not gonna be near anybody. And then we go out and you know where it ends up?
Yeah.
Right next to somebody, and then we don't have a plan that says where it was. So it gets into a situation where, at least if I'm sitting on this board, I wanna know where it's gonna be. And to that level, somebody coming in and saying, I'm gonna have it in the back of my yard isn't gonna be sufficient for me, and I don't think it'd be sufficient for most of the board. I mean, you need to have something that the town can stake their hat on as to what you actually approve.
The special permit regulations require that you have an engineered plan anyway, so. To go before the zoning board, you have to have that plan, so,
And that part's not changing.
no.
All right, so it's gonna be a pretty high hurdle then.
Yes.
No.
Well, whatever you consider a high hurdle. I mean, I don't think providing a site plan that shows where you put your bee in the back of your yard is that big a hurdle, but.
Any other input from the public? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
A motion to close the public hearing and send a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Second, first, we see the second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous of 5.
All right. This is public hearing number 6. Continued public hearing, the application of Route 85 Realty Fork for special permit approval regarding construction of a 191,700 square foot wholesale facility, associated off-street parking on a 116-acre undeveloped property located on the western side of East Main Street, southwest of Wildwood Drive, known as number 0 East Main, Assessors Map 30, Block 0, Lot 34, Business Park Zone. Take care.
Good evening, for the record, John Cusick with Bowler Engineering. We have the full team here with me tonight as well. We were before the board, it was back in January, when we presented the full project. We ran through really all of the plans at a high level, showing you what was proposed and the details associated with that. Since that time, we had met with town engineer just to review the plans, talk about the stormwater. She had some very good comments, which we have since incorporated and submitted back to her. I don't want to speak for her, but I think we've addressed, or at least we've incorporated what she's asked. I don't think she's finished her final review yet, but I think it was pretty straightforward what the requests were. You've also asked that the project go back to peer review for traffic. That has happened. We received a peer review comment back, which was pretty straightforward. We've since responded to those comments and submitted a response comment letter, as well as the updated plans with the drainage modifications. And we've also submitted plans associated with the notice of intent to the Conservation Commission, which we're going to be on a hearing at the end of April, if I'm not mistaken. So with that, that's really what's changed between now and then. We can go through any of the response to traffic comments if you like, or any update you'd like to hear.
Just so you guys are aware, our peer review traffic engineers
Oh, okay.
are here. I did not get your response over to them yet, so I will, so they haven't seen that. I don't know if there was anything that you thought you wanted to bring up, but here.
Yeah, it's straightforward, we can run through it for the board's pleasure if you like.
I mean, I think my personal opinion is that we should give them the opportunity to go through the responses and have them respond back to us than trying to negotiate or go through that here at this meeting.
Yeah.
It's not productive either way.
Yeah, I think everything's straightforward.
Yeah, I don't know if there should be anything that's that critical, but, I mean, I think looking at some of the initial comments and stuff and what we've gone through, though, as we move forward with this, and obviously there's less, shall we say, less technical things that are hanging out there, but one of the things that continues to be something that, at least for me, that I need to know is, again, this is a special permit. I know we're not gonna get a name of the tenant, and I don't expect that, but in order to approve the special permit, I need to know what that definition is and what I'm approving. And just saying it's a wholesaler isn't gonna cut it for me. There's gonna have to be some higher level of what's coming in there than that, and I'm not sure what that's gonna be, but obviously we haven't seen that yet. But again, knowing it's a special permit, there's a reason why we did it as a special permit, and if it just meant that any wholesaler could go in, then, you know, it sort of changes the dynamic a little bit, so I'll be waiting to see how the wording of the special permit, what you guys think that wording needs to be as part of going forward. But in terms of the other issues, you know, Liz, you'll need to finalize your letter in terms of the drainage and those types of things. We'll go through what the final letter is for the traffic at that point, and I would assume that could be relatively soon. And then knowing what the special permit's gonna read is the critical thing for me.
Any other members of the board?
Comment?
I don't have anything this time.
Well, good evening, if you can hear
Yes.
me.
Yes, we can hear you.
For the record, Joseph Antonellis, attorney for the applicant. Good evening, I hope everyone is well tonight. I have struggled with the issue regarding identifying what wholesaling is. The zoning bylaw was drafted by Town of Milford, and the definition of wholesaling is set forth in the bylaws and Black's Law Dictionary, and I don't understand yet, and I've had this dilemma with your board and other boards, that the actual definition or the designation of who's going to be in the building is a very difficult thing, and I'm not quite certain that it fits within the four corners of any special permit, because you have already determined by adopting this zoning bylaw that the use is compatible with the district because you put it in the VP district. So the use is wholesale. It's not Joe's wholesaling or Larry Duncan's wholesaling or anyone else's wholesaling. It's wholesaling. And while I will work very, very tirelessly with the town planner and others to try and come up with some language for the special permit decision, I trust that you will all recognize that you cannot go out and find a tenant for a building unless and until you can tell a tenant when the building will be available for occupancy. While many people build buildings on spec, this is going to be a significant investment. In order to get it started, we've got to get a special permit approved. And again, I will echo this frustration in front of your board on other matters when we talked about industrial uses. The zoning bylaw allows industry. It doesn't require one to designate what that industry is so long as it fits within the uses that are categorized. I've said to Larry in the past, if this was a retail project, would you be making me identify whether it's someone selling dresses or golf clubs? I don't, again, I think that when you adopt a zoning bylaw that calls for use, and the use in this particular case is wholesaling with storage, I do not believe, even within the gamut of a special permit, which I understand requires a little bit more of a look, I just don't understand or agree that you can impose on the applicant a list of potential users in this building. And again, I will tell you, I think this board knows that my particular style is one of cooperation and conciliation, and I will continue to represent my client in that way. But I do want to express for you all that it is a difficult situation to come up with language that would allow my client to go to a bank and get financing, okay, to have a bank say, okay, this is what's coming down the road, I'm going to do it spec, absolutely. But what I can't do is put clients in a position where a building is up and then all of a sudden someone doesn't like what the wholesaling is. I can understand that we have to comply with the traffic counts that we've proposed. I can understand that we have to comply with all of the site plan requirements. But it is my particular opinion that if we have a wholesaler with storage, we need not tell the board or go through the effort of identifying whether we're, and I'll use examples here, whether we are a distribution center for CVS pharmacies, distributing sundries to drugstores, as McKesson Spirits did for 40 years before CVS on, or whether or not we are and again, I'm using this as an example, we are a Riley's Auto Parts regional wholesaling facility where we're bringing our auto parts to all of our O'Reilly stores. I really don't think that we can get that specific. Again, I know I sound a bit argumentative because I'm fairly certain that this is going to be a difficult situation to balance, but I will tell you I will continue to work with your staff to try and come up with some language that you're comfortable with, but I want you to know it's not just a simple situation where we can say, we'll come back to the board and make sure you like who's going in there, okay? I believe from my experience and my understanding of your zoning bylaw that the person responsible for determining whether or not it's wholesaling with storage will be the zoning enforcement agent. That's the person in this town, in Milford, and in most towns, who determines whether or not the use can go in the building. So really, what we're here before you is to build a building that we intend, that requires a special permit. Again, I understand you need the traffic counts and all that. And I don't want to belabor it, but I guess I am. So I'll close by saying, we will do our best, but we're not going to come back with a carte blanche situation that says that the board gets the final determination as to who goes in there. If that's the case, we'll have to go in another direction. We're intent on getting this property developed, and I think that my client track record in the development of property and conforming to the requirements of the board is outstanding. His properties always look really great when he's done with them, and this one won't be any different. So I apologize again if I sound argumentative, but I do want to let you know that we're not going to just come back and say the special permit will require the user to be identified before an occupancy permit. That's the building inspector's decision. Thank you.
I don't think that's what I was saying, but I believe, obviously, that being a special permit, I mean, this isn't by right. And there there's some level that needs to be addressed, that we, as far as I'm concerned, needs to get to. And if it were by right, then we wouldn't be in a special permit discussion, so I'm more than happy to see what comes up between the attorney and Larry and go from there, but there needs to be something other than it's a warehouse. Because, you know, again, in using Mr. Antonellis' terms, Larry's warehouse may function totally different than Joe's warehouse, and I wanna know how that's gonna function.
Wholesale.
Wholesale, sorry.
Wholesale.
And I don't mean to interrupt, but it's wholesaling with storage, it's not a warehouse.
Yep.
Yes.
And I guess, yeah, to Joe's point, you know, certainly when it was first proposed, I think one of the main points that I saw were the multiple, you know, 18-wheeler bays in the back and the 200 parking spots. And I felt that original traffic study didn't quite capture all of those parking spots, and I was worried about shift changes, and I brought that up. So I guess I'm still concerned there, and that could definitely have an impact depending on who the client is utilizing the wholesale facility, right? Where there could be a client that truly only has a few vehicles going in and out. If it's you know, an O'Reilly's Auto Parts, which was mentioned, you know, compared to another usage that is bringing packages throughout Milford or surrounding areas. So again, that traffic, I think, is gonna be the biggest sticky point to me. I feel like the location of it and being off the road, it's kind of hidden back there, so it's not going to impact sightlines. It'll still hopefully, you know, the trees will not be cut down and it'll be kind of hidden back there, so I want to make sure of that aspect of it as we move forward. But again, it's the traffic impact of the area. I think that really we need to know, and to Joe's point, I think it goes right to who that individual or company will be that will be utilizing that facility.
Yeah, I think traffic, just because I know there's probably been issues with trying to define what the traffic is or isn't based on what's in the manual.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. Corinne Tobias with Green International. I perform the traffic peer review. So I think, you know, one of the things that we did identify in our letter was that the use that was being used and being proposed in the traffic study was a very low trip generator. And it's got a fairly specific definition under ITE. Now, whether or not that's going to be what's constructed is a little bit hard to tell at this stage. And so we did recommend kind of a compromise option, which was looking at, I understand that, you know, you say it's not going to be a warehouse, but the warehouse land use code for trip generation includes a lot of the things that are being proposed on this site and is a more conservative evaluation in terms of the number of trips generated. And so we did suggest that they reconsider what they're using for the trip generation. I don't know what the response has been yet, I'm sorry about that. In order to just give the board some comfort that whatever does go in there, we can accommodate and accurately reflect that in the traffic study.
And if I could speak to that, we have gone forward and completed that trip generation exercise so that the number of vehicle trips associated with the project using the land use code suggested by your peer reviewer is certainly higher than what was originally presented. We took the step of taking those vehicle trips, assigning them to the surrounding roadway network and intersections and reanalyzing all of the impacts of the project. So that's all presented back. I know they haven't had a chance to take a look at it, but we have gone through the exercise. It hasn't changed the conclusions that were reached in the study. That the project still showing a minimal impact to the surrounding roadway network, but we have taken that step to show a more conservative trip generation, to just hopefully have the board and the town in general more comfortable with how we're presenting the impacts of the project.
When you say more conservative, you're ending up with greater trips.
Correct. I'm talking about more conservative in.
That's not conservative from the board's standpoint. Conservative from the board's standpoint is to have a wholesale use that isn't high cube warehouse, warehouse and distribution center.
Understood,
So
but
it's not supposed to be a parcel hub, it's supposed to be a wholesaler that has storage,
and that is what we
which would be a
continue to
lower
maintain,
number of trips.
which is what we presented originally. We feel is the more accurate, but to the board members.
From my standpoint, in working with your council on trying to develop language in a decision, it would seem to me the board would be interested in having a lower number of trips as a threshold to determine whether it's still really a wholesale use in the future or not, in spite of what the building official may think at the time. And you would have scientific evidence to show that, hey, this really isn't wholesale anymore, guys, because look at the number of trips it's generating. I don't want to see reports that have higher number of trips. I want to see reports that are as accurate as possible for a wholesale operation. So, which is where you started, and so that's why I was a little concerned.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you've got two divergent things here in
Right.
terms of, you know, a comment as to whether it could handle the additional trips or,
Well,
you know, or not, and then what's actually gonna come there. And I think that's, to be honest, I think that's where we get, I'd like to know that, because I'm not convinced that if we get wholesale now, what we get 7 years from now. And it would be good to know, to a certain extent, that if there were a few more trips, they in fact ran that and the network was still okay, per se.
right.
That being said, the decision, and this goes back into how we craft the special permit, that's where I'd like to see what the wording is gonna be in terms of what we're saying or not. And that's where we get into issues as to what those are, and that's where I think we have to go. But
Yeah, it's one thing to-
I think running the other analysis at whatever length to get us information is certainly worthwhile information. As to whether that information goes into part of the decision or not later on, that can be changed later on, but I'd still like to see what the analysis showed.
Yeah, because the analysis would confirm the carrying capacity of the roadway,
Yep.
which is entirely the opposite direction
Right.
of coming up with limitations and
Yes.
restrictions in a decision to assure that it stays a wholesale use
Yes.
and not a IQ
Yep.
parcel hub.
Anyone else? This being a public hearing, people from the public, when you stand up, please give your name, your address, and address the chair, please.
So, my name is Raymond Lowe, I live at 7 Pine Needle Circle. So we're approximately 550 feet across from the proposed project. One of my original concerns was when I read the traffic study, the number of trips for the square footage. I have friends that work in 50,000 square foot warehouses and they have the same number of trips. So how does that work? And not allowing the applicant to clear cut trees. If you see what happened at Hoppingbrook, that the applicant went in and started clearing land and basically cut every tree down to the back into Medway. That is adjacent to a residential district, and to keep that feel that they not be allowed to clear cut. If we could petition MassDOT for a no jake break on 16 out in that area. There are a number of trucks that do use their jake brake all times, day and night. And then on a bigger kind of issue, as I travel every day through Beaver Street, Fortune Boulevard, 16, is that if the town could look at a right turn lane from Beaver Street to 16. And why that was never, or not anticipated, if we're gonna continue to add businesses, whether it's Milford or Holliston, in conjunction with adding more truck trips there. So if you were heading north on Beaver Street, east on 16, that's 2 lanes today. And if there's gonna be additional truck trips, that there should be a right turn, in my opinion, a right turn lane there. And then today, tractor trailers trying to make that turn are, impinging on, if you're trying to make a left, will impinge, they have to try to navigate that corner, and it does create some issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Joe Corson, 17 Woodbridge Road. So, 3 things. I'm gonna ask anyone here if someone in your neighbor came and said, I want to do an easement on your property, but I'm not gonna tell you what it is, would you do it? Second thing, what's stored is gonna make an impact on the police and fire department, correct? If it's something that's highly combustible, So it's gonna have an impact there also. And once you say yes, can we take it back? Putting something next to my property without knowing what it is not a good idea to me.
Anyone else? Yes?
Patricia Elliott, Adams Street. We already have heavy traffic there now. We've added Amazon. I understand there's more going in up where Staples is, Hopkins Brook, and now you're talking about having 250 or more people commuting back and forth. It's death-defying to get out of my driveway as things are now. I understand there's not going to be any light that's going to give us access to 16. And once the horse is out of the barn, I don't see how you're going to be able to take it back. He can say, geez, we don't know who we're going to put in there, but they're going to put somebody in there once they have this thing built. And the type of wholesaler, it's going to make a big difference if they're going to need more access in and out, or if it's somebody that's not going to need to make as many trips. And if you have no clue as to who you're going to put in there, then how do we have any clue as to what the impact is going to be? So that's, I personally think it's a really bad idea to put more traffic into that area. You've got Holliston. What are you going to do, take out the town of Holliston? As far as people commuting through Holliston on 16, it's going to back traffic up. It's going to be tough to commute. It's going to make it tough for business owners to be able to have traffic wanting to get to their retail stores, because if there's a big bottleneck there, I mean, how's that going to impact all of the business people in Milford, let alone all the residents in Milford for their commutes? So, in any case, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Please, Mike, so. Tom Stearns, Brookfield Road, 6 Brookfield Road. I guess it's more for consideration, the board. I think as this is the beginning of the development of this land, and when we think about moving into our future for Milford and what's going to draw people to this town, the mountain bike trails are significant to that. The other recreation we have in Milford is gonna be what brings people here. There's lots of talk about downtown, but what I think the vision needs to include is how we draw people to this area. The mountain bike trails bring, I think, a tremendous amount of people from all over the country. Other recreation we have, as the Parks Department develops different projects, bringing different types of recreation here. There's very little undeveloped land now, and as this facility goes into, I'm more asking that you think of the big picture as more is asked of that land. Maybe Mr. Mean is open to being a good neighbor, and that we maybe add some bike parking or even trails that are a part of the development of that land as it goes beyond that. And that the consideration of the trees and the wetlands and all the environmental aspects of that land are looked at very closely in terms of the big picture for Milford. Because I really believe that a downtown replenishment comes from why people come to Milford, why you would go to the rail trail or the craft routes. Who are the types of people that we want to come here? What's going to attract them? And as you drive up 495 and you see the mountain bike trails, which I know have bled into private land over the years, and that is private property, but there are good neighbors there now. They kind of ignore that. We should think how that the mountain bike trails don't get smaller, and other aspects of what we do here attract people to the town, so then they want to go downtown to eat and what they want to drink and where they want to visit. So I know it's not a specific ask on this property. I don't have a specific ask. I do ask that as we continue, maybe you put pressure on the developer to consider what it means to be a good neighbor? Can we incorporate parking and trails and things like that? How they take the trees down and what trees stay up and that whole environmental aspect of it, as well as all the traffic. But I'm just looking for the board to consider the big picture as this land will just begin to be developed, I think, with this wholesale facility.
Sure.
Do you know if any mountain bike trails immediately abut this property?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
I used
It's on the
mountain bike.
backside. It's on
So
the
we already,
backside.
this board already knew that.
Actually in Palm, it's in Palm, right?
No, the mountain bike trail, it won't be on this parcel. This parcel needs to be, one of the things that we do need to find is what this parcel will look like at the end of the day. Because right now, what was presented to us was the whole, for lack of a better word, the Ropsham parcel, which was the whole parcel. This will be 10 acres of that parcel. What that exactly looks like, we need to see that plan. That's another thing that's still outstanding. But the mountain bike trail actually abuts the remainder of the Ropsham parcel, not where this particular section is going. And most of its access and frontage is actually on the other side, the 85 side, not the 16 side.
So that's my ask, is think holistically, think about the future of our town, everything is integrated, and any undeveloped land is an asset to attract people here. And I just feel like this is just the beginning. It's the opportunity for him to develop the rest of the land. And if we're not careful, then it'll just run away with us. So, thank you for your
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Ivy Nelson Kramer, 469 East Main Street, down by the Holliston Inn. I have a concern, like other people have voiced their opinion on the traffic. Currently, we have tractor trailers running all night long. Jake breaks on at 11 o'clock at night, 4 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, and this is only going to contribute to having more of them. And also, down by 16 and Fortune Boulevard, it's a nightmare now when you have tractor trailers trying to make turns. So again, it's only going to create a larger problem, I think, unless something is done. That's it, just traffic concerns.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Kevin Keaton from Camp Street. A couple questions and a couple comments.
Keaton from Camp Street.
Thank you. Can I get the difference definition-wise between a wholesaler with storage versus a warehouse? Excuse my ignorance.
Just definitions are in our zoning.
Yeah, wholesaling is specifically defined, and as counsel for the applicant pointed out, this definition is similar to what's in Black's Law Dictionary. Wholesaling is defined in our zoning bylaws, a sale of commodities in quantity to retailers or distributors for use, resale, or further processing, rather than directly to end consumers.
Okay, appreciate it, thank you. Are there existing exclusions to what can be stored in a wholesale facility?
Well, anything that's combustible,
Explosive.
hazardous has to go through a licensing procedure through the town, through the selectmen, and through the fire department.
Okay,
And a
that's
special permit
Yes.
decision can limit that as well.
Okay, I see. And so part of your question, member, Callie Young?
Close enough, don't worry.
Was if there are additional things that you would be concerned about that might not be
Yes.
existing in the exclusion list.
Yeah, certainly those types of things are questions, just things that we've had to deal with previously. We've recently had to deal with somebody that was doing, or was thinking of doing battery charging, storing batteries. We've had that issue, as a matter of fact, up at Amazon. We had to go through a number of safety things to make sure that was taken care of in the proper way. So I wouldn't say that there's that many things that are totally excluded. However, there are things that if you are doing them, they need to be done in a different way than storing something else. So that becomes part of the issue, yeah.
Appreciate it. And I saw the plans, they don't look like bad plans. I do want to make sure that the drainage is okay, is that's been adequately addressed?
Yeah, so the drainage is, the layout of the drainage is been modified to something that I'm good with. As part of the conservation filing, I'll get a little more in-depth into the drainage analysis, so that's something that, you know, it'll kind of works, it's covered under both the planning board's purview and the conservation, but it's typically more conservation related, so I would be more, if there's something in particular you're concerned about, certainly I can, you know, try to help you understand it, but the, typically the Conservation Commission is stricter than the planning board on drainage issues.
I did have a question on how it would affect the wetlands north, east of the property.
So one of the things that I asked was for them to analyze it in a way that would allow us to see more specifically which wetlands were affected in which ways. So I think by analyzing it that way, we're doing a better job of trying to make sure it's not affecting one any more than the other, I guess is the, so, you know, the drainage in and of itself is sort of complicated, but the regulations are required it to meet the standards so that it's not making any one area, you know, worse. And so I believe that that's been accomplished at this point.
Thank you. Appreciate the board doing their due diligence, and like Mr. said, you know, a publicly accessible way to get to those woods would be nice. Sometimes the 85 lot can be tough to get to, and there's a tiny lot on Adams Street that's tough. It would be appreciated if there was some public access, and appreciate the time. Thank you.
Anyone else?
One additional question, does the special permit limit the hours of operation?
It can.
Is that under consideration? That it wouldn't be a 24/7? I mean, understanding that this is, whether it requires a special permit or not, this is a residential area, right? It's surrounded by houses. Now, but its immediate abutters are residential, right? It's not a business area. It's not, you know, the next door neighbor's another office park or a strip mall or plaza or whatever that may be, and understanding that they, you know, have the right to, you know, should the board issue a permit, and, you know, I think everybody's concern is that it becomes a neighbor's on warehouse, right? And that, you know, all of a sudden we have 24/7 tractor trailers, and, I mean, it was so nice when the Amazon trucks were gone from that small lot right on the corner next to Hickey's. It was beautiful. And all of a sudden they were back. And the, you know, the ensuing traffic and the comings and goings of the drivers, which some days are great, other days, yeah, a little iffy. But, you know, obviously I didn't select the location. I lived in the adjoining town for 17 years and chose to move to this location because of its location and its surrounding area. Thank you.
Anyone? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my name is Janet Carmona, I live on East Main Street, and I just want to reiterate a few things that people have already said. The traffic is really very difficult on East Main Street now to get in and out of the driveways. It is a residential area. We have a sand and gravel pit not a quarter of a mile from this proposed entrance. The street is not that wide. I can't imagine some of these tractor trailers even making the turns to get out of the property. And this is the first time I've heard about any of this public hearing. I don't know if anybody else had gotten any previous letters about this, but I wondered if there was any other way that this entrance could not be on 16 and be on 85.
No.
And that's what I don't know, because I didn't hear anything from the beginning of all of this planning. So that's why I'm asking.
You can't get there from here.
No.
Okay, and that's what I want to know. So really, if that's the case, then this really needs to be taken into consideration of how difficult it is to live in a residential area with all these tractor trailers possibly coming in, along with the sand and gravel trucks, and Holliston, and making the turns. I'm really reiterating what everybody said, but I really hope you take it into consideration. Thank you.
Sorry to add on. Is it possible that as part of granting a special permit, that considerations be put for turn lanes? Even if they're not used today, that the road and the entrance to the, you know, the fact that when Quarry Square, or when Stop and Shop moved, there was no left turn lane put in to allow traffic to turn left into the plaza. Right, so the traffic backs up on Beaver Street, 2 entrances, people trying to cut through. I know we tried to limit no left turn from 109, no, yeah, whatever, that doesn't work. But, you know, that as part of a bigger plan, if this were to be approved, that improvements be looked at to the plaza, as I'm gonna, most of the, or a majority of the traffic is gonna be using 109 and coming down Beaver Street. And then, you know, that even if the turn lane isn't put in and marked today, but the site preparation be anticipating, or that if the site in the future gets more development and additional traffic, that be considered today to create a wide enough roadway to allow for turning lane there also.
Maybe Holliston would like to donate the town of Holliston to make a wider road there too. I'm being facetious, but I mean, I can't emphasize enough that you have a 2-lane road going through a small town, and a 2-lane road, I mean, how much property can you possibly buy from Holliston and all of the residential places along Milford to create enough space for all the traffic that is going to be coming there, not only from this project, but from all these other projects. And you know, you can't tell them that they can't come that way, because they will come that way. You can't possibly monitor that, and you can't possibly say that whoever they put in there is going to only have so many entrances and exits. Once they're in there, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. And it's just gonna add to the already bad situation that's there. It's going to create a hazard not only for the residents, but for businesses in Milford that are getting off of 495. We have exits on either end, and the traffic in that particular area is just gonna make it impossible. We're gonna have just a horrible situation as far as traffic, worse than it already is, and it's not good now.
I gotta jump in and say, where do we want this town to be? Everyone over here said it. Where do we see this town growing? Where is it going to attract people here? You got room down up in Hopkinton. There's a ton of open property up there. They took everything by eminent domain, never opened half the buildings. There's plenty of other property around, and to take this in our town, they have nothing left. And one, it's like a blank check.
You're going down a path that this board has no control over. I mean, a person has a right to develop their land. So to say somebody should go somewhere else, we can't, there's nothing that we can even react to that with. I mean, there's nothing that we can say, hey, why don't you go somewhere else? So to give us those types of comments doesn't really serve us anywhere. So I'd rather stay away from those.
But if they need a special permit, then it's not supposed to be there anyway.
No, that's not what a special permit is.
Well,
They have the right to develop their land, just like anybody else does with putting in a residence. It's just a process, but that doesn't mean they can't develop it. That's far from that.
I can't do whatever the heck I want to do on my property.
And they can't do whatever they want, because I bet you if they wanted to do something else, it would look a lot different than what they're presenting to us. So they're under regulations too. So we all have to live under those regulations. That's That's what we're here for, is what the regulations are and what it allows them to do. But by no means does anybody say you can't do anything. You can't go down that path.
Totally agree, but if they need a special permit, then maybe they should be looking at something else for that land.
Not that I want to get into that here, but the usage that they're putting out there is probably one of the least, in terms of traffic usage that's allowed. It's probably one of the lowest ones that you will see. So, you know, we've dealt with this property for years. We've dealt with it as a 40B. We've dealt with it as part of a casino. We've dealt with it with all those things in terms of what the traffic is or isn't. And to be totally honest, if you look at the traffic that this is generating compared to all those other usage, this is one of the lower ones. So it's.
You don't know that, though.
Well, yeah, you do know that. To an extent, you do know that.
You would warrant that?
Can I what?
Can you warrant that?
What do you want me to warrant?
That it will only have X number of so much traffic, never more.
No, I can't.
Well, this is a wholesaling area, I mean, their business is to sell, wholesale. There's gonna be a lot of trucks, doesn't matter, I mean, well, you can wholesale means like there's a individual business owner, I can drive up there, buy 10 things. That's wholesale.
No, you can't.
If I'm a business owner,
If you're,
I can't buy from a wholesaler?
If it's for your business.
for your business, yes.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, there's no limit to the size of the business that can drive up there. If it's a legitimate business.
And again, this probably isn't the point to get into, but the usages that they're doing, there's a manual that says for this type of usage, it generally produces this type of traffic. That's all we have to go by. That's what everybody goes by. Same thing with the residential area. If there's a residential area, you have so many trips per day coming from that residential area. For a wholesale usage, which falls under, and this is why we've had our consultants look at it in terms of various areas that the Institute of Traffic Engineers publishes this Bible that says, for this many square feet, this is how many people you're gonna get, and they've looked at various usages. That's where you come up with the numbers. That's all we can go on. I mean, somebody uses something that's somewhat different, you never know what that's gonna be or not. It's very tough to get to those numbers down to that level, but you need to compartmentalize it into some level, and that's the standard that everybody uses. Not only the town of Milford, but every other town uses.
Does anyone else got any comments? Hearing none, it's the pleasure of the board.
Make a motion to continue the public hearing.
Okay.
I don't know what schedule looks
June,
like.
June 5th to
June 4th.
4th, so,
June 4th. I make
Okay,
a motion
sorry.
to continue the public hearing to June 4th,
June 4th.
7:02, Larry?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Joe, second. Joe, then.
Yeah. Been moved and seconded, we continue the public hearing until June 4th. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, 5. Again, it'll be June 4th, it'll be here again, it's still a public hearing.
Thank you.
Probably, for those of you that have discussed traffic and stuff, I would imagine that we'll have a little more discussion on the results of the traffic analysis, those, that way you know.
This amended site plan for 108 East Main, Guerra Realty. The applicant was granted a special permit by the ZBA on 3/14 of this year to allow for auto glass replacement business on the property in lieu of the previously approved rental car operation. The decision, the most recent decision is attached, at least. 108 East Main was the site of the former Gibbs gas station, and the separate adjacent lot at 3 Cedar Street contains a non-conforming 3-family dwelling. The auto-related use required a special permit from the ZBA, and the changes relating to the non-conforming triplex required a special permit as well. The applicant now seeks to conform the site plan to accommodate the auto glass replacement business on the property in lieu of the previously approved rental car business. The Prior ZBA approvals relating to the three-family remain unaffected with this current proposal. This proposal is to authorize the hourglass operation while retaining the use of the two properties as one site as previously approved by the ZBA. The two old driveways on Cedar Street have been closed. The existing driveway for the triplex has been widened and the width of the remaining driveway on East Main Street has been reduced. Triplex and its associated off-street parking have been retained. Alterations proposed to the site with this application have been generally limited to pavement striping. Landscaping is being provided in the areas that would be necessary for any future reconfiguration of East Main Street and Cedar Street intersection. In addition, the two parcels were to be formally merged into one lot. I don't know if that's happened yet, but it should be soon, if it hasn't already. I recommend approval subject to all relevant conditions of special permits being met, obviously, and then to any relevant department comments that we received. I've got the decision attached in your packet. There are some other reports, and we did just get Scotty's report today, so it's not stapled to the packet, but it's clipped in there. So all of these were forwarded to the applicant. The fire department memo had some comments about the location of the dumpsters, which I believe has been addressed. Health had no direct comments. Water, the same. And as I said, we just got Scotty's today. He said he reviewed it. The grant was going to be utilized by the highway department to widen the intersection has been denied. However, the intersection project has been put on the tip by Mass DOT. The project could be 5 to 7 years before start of construction, but he does recommend existing curb cuts be closed as shown on their site today. The applicant's here for any further comments and the full-size plans attached.
Hi, my name is Ryan Boucher. I'm with PBI Site Design, standing in for my coworker on this one. I have reviewed, kind of got up to speed on the project, and Mr. Duncan described it as well as I know it. Just some striping modifications and a little tweak of the dumpster, so it's better aligned with the approach of the trash trucks. I don't have much more to say about it. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer.
Would you like Bruce to come back to address the site plan issues?
Yeah.
This is only a change of use.
You've gone before the sewer board?
I don't know. Sorry. I'm stepping in. My partner's on vacation. It's told to be pretty straightforward, striping. My understanding is that everything else has been resolved. The fire department wanted the dumpster tweaked a little bit, the curb cut's been closed. Nothing has been constructed, as you said, on the parcel, or the portion of the parcel that is anticipated to be taken for the roadway realignment. To my knowledge, everything has been.
It was approved before, wasn't it?
What's that?
It was approved before, wasn't it?
Yes.
There's no change from auto glass to rental for the sewer, I'm saying.
Oh, for sewer, no.
I mean, if they approved it for that usage, there's not changing.
I hadn't seen a sewer line in it before in the other plants, a new sewer line. That was the only reason I brought that up.
So you're wondering if this sewer is
What
the same as the previous?
The previous, yeah.
Give me 2 seconds and I'll grab my folder.
No, other than that, there was no changes, but again,
Yeah, if that's a change, then that's a different story. My assumption is that's the same that they showed on the previous.
Yeah, I've got the plan from, what's the date on that? 12/19/2003, 2023, excuse me. And that shows the same as it is today.
Yeah, so the revision on revision 2 and 3 probably.
Yeah, I was looking at the latest one. Yeah,
It just surprised me to see AC down, we don't use AC pipe anymore. It's like illegal.
What is it?
Asbestos.
Oh, God. Yeah, I think that's impossible. Oh.
Yeah, so, the previous set was showing, it tying into the AC stub. So, yeah, it's showing, although I would say that this looks like
This-
proposed.
Yes.
But,
I couldn't understand why they weren't using the existing, that's,
did,
So they just run
did we
it
have
through
us
the system?
tying into it?
So the CO,
Did
where
we
they
get-
show the cleanup, that's really the new section of pipe, I would assume? Or
No.
probably not, it's
No,
actually,
it's at
it's
the
actually no,
bend.
it's actually no change in the existing sewer, I would assume.
It's,
This is all existing.
there's a bend, well, at least on this plan, it shows right after the word stub, where that bend is, that's the end of the existing stub, as shown on the previous plan. I don't know that to be.
And I'm hoping that the slight change in line type is intentional to show that
I
the
was just
slightly
gonna say,
tighter.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the smaller, the shorter dashes are the
Right.
proposed connection. The longer dashes are the existing.
and the drainage is the same as it was before.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, there's nothing to be done there.
And the plan-
And actually, I think that the drainage is already in, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, everything should be,
Everything's.
Yeah.
it's all asphalt.
I was gonna say, the plan that you were originally referring to, was that Rev 2?
This is all one parcel, they've done.
We're on Rev 4 now. Rev 2, which was dated 1/19/23, and it says site plan
This is supposed to
approval
go
conditions.
with-
No, this is Rev 1.
That's Rev 1.
The one I'm looking at,
Okay.
but that's not to
It's
say.
the
So
plan.
town plan, yeah.
I might have another one.
Yeah, it's the same as a
I just, when I see new on a plan, that's
three-family.
my trigger.
But the difference also was that the operation isn't gonna have a bunch of rental cars parked on the property.
So much better
So it's
use.
gonna have a combination of their vehicles during the day and our vehicles getting glass replaced and their employees parking there.
Yeah.
But I doubt that there's gonna be any of their company vehicles, at least any of the vehicles that have glass mounted on them, sitting outside overnight. I think they're all gonna be inside.
Yes,
If they sit
outside.
If they sit outside, they're not gonna have any glass.
Yeah, broke it again.
Yeah, they're only proposing 2 employees.
Right. So that's his restripe to match this. So it seemed to make sense.
What's the pleasure of the board? Yes?
I was just conferring with Joe, having this being my first meeting, that the house is going to remain?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, then that's a part of the action that this board will take to
Yes.
stipulate that. Okay,
Yes.
good.
Well, it's part of the site plan, the special permit already covered its use
It
and.
was already done before, yes.
And there's just a funny symbol on the plans, I don't know what it is. Right there. I just don't know what that symbol is.
Which one? That is a utility pole.
Okey-dokey. And I'm sorry, one more thing, if I could. Larry, you mentioned that hopefully this project, a widening of the intersection is on the tip and maybe, I'm sorry, Larry, okay.
Yeah.
And would hopefully be undertaken in the next decade?
Yeah.
I mean, they could always come in and do takings if needed to improve the intersection, but,
We took the easement.
no, never mind.
We
Already
agreed
there.
to
Previously
Never mind.
done it. It's just
We
getting money to do
pre-designed
it.
Yep.
That's why the curb is set back.
Very good. Thank you.
Can we get confirmation that the 81P's been completed, Larry?
I haven't, but
Yeah, I don't know that information.
I mean, at this point, I
make it.
yeah, I make it contingent, I mean, if I'm gonna do a motion, it would be contingent on that, I just like to have yes or no that.
I'm sorry. So it says approximate anticipated limit of taking. But,
Well, that was the proposed taking based on a plan that we had developed.
Yeah.
And suggested and had G&H
Yeah.
do a design for. When Ray Guerra came back into these plans, he incorporated that so that any redevelopment costs wouldn't be for naught later on and wouldn't, would be less likely to have to change the site.
No.
But if the state,
can't we?
if the state decides they want more, obviously they can still take more, but
So that's, I'm not sure that it's
Yeah,
necessary to take an easement because it has not been a fully developed plan. We may not need as much as this, we may
Right.
need more. This was, the applicant basically, for his own benefit as much as ours was using.
Conceptual kind of.
Yeah, was using this conceptual line
Yeah.
so as not to disturb their property any more than
later on.
because this is definitely something that's, at some point going to be taking
Okay.
place, so.
And you other board members are, again, I'm coming in pretty late to the party here. But you guys are all comfortable with with as it is?
Yes.
Okay. In terms of accommodating the future widening? Okay.
Yeah, any widening you have to put, the most important widening would be on the other side of the street by the other gas station, which there's no land to take
Right.
there. That's
Oh,
the
I would've
problem
thought
with
this
taking,
one.
that's the problem, taking the
turn.
right-hand turn, there is no
From
problem.
Cedar to East
Cedar
Main.
towards town.
Towards town,
That's the
okay.
toughest, one.
Oh, yeah, okay. Hear ya.
You need to turn lane all the way to Hayward Street.
sounds dangerously close to a motion.
Yeah, make a motion, we approve the amended site plan subject to confirmation of the 81 fleet.
The 81P is for.
Yeah, it's the next
To
site.
combine the parcels into one.
Combined site.
Just
That we combine the site.
I'll second.
Second by Chris. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous of 5.
Now the part. To adjourn.
Oh, I was like, what? Something's missing in my packet.
I move to adjourn.
That's it. We have a motion to adjourn,
I'll second that.
seconded by Joe. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous of 5. Thank you. Good night.
Well, this was